Hey guys, welcome back to One All's Pub. Well, if there's a knife that can be called sexy, the LionSteel SR2A in red, ruby red, crimson red, deep red, whatever, is it. Look at this. Is this a sexy little knife or what? You gotta love a sexy redhead. I'll be honest with you, I had a hard time deciding between this and the SR1A. I knew I wanted to get one of these and had, ever since I watched the first real review of this knife, it wasn't even on my radar until I watched the review of this, the SR1A by the Apostle P. And he was such a fan of his SR1A that I thought, well, that's a knife that I need to put on my radar. But I just I wasn't sure if I wanted to buy the SR1A because it seemed like an awful big knife. Not that I have a problem with big knives. I mean, I carry a lot of big knives, XM18s, full-size Sebenzas, not a problem. But and if the SR2A didn't exist, I wouldn't have worried about it. I'd have just popped for the 1A. But knowing that the 2A existed, I kind of got infatuated with the slightly smaller version. And I was really having a hard time deciding between the two. I knew I wanted to get one, I just couldn't decide. And because I couldn't decide, I kind of went into the analysis of paralysis and just got stuck. And part of that problem, the reason I couldn't decide is because I just couldn't find any place on the web, on YouTube or in forums or whatnot, of good videos or pictures of this being held in a full finger grip and seeing what it looks and feels like in a hand relative to other knives and or with someone who that I had seen do other knives as well on video and whatnot. There wasn't really good data there, and I couldn't decide if this was going to be a 3-finger knife for me, which I did not want, or a full 4-finger knife. It really wasn't until I was on until Aiden's Daddy 17 on Instagram posted some pictures of his SR2A, and I asked him to take some pictures of it, holding it in all 4 fingers so I could get a good view of it. And I'd seen him do other knives, so I had kind of an idea of what his hand size was. Anyway, it wasn't until he did that for me that I really kind of settled in on, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pop for the 2A. That said, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys. I'm going to solve that dilemma and give you a real good perspective on how this knife fits into the hand. As you can see, it is indeed a 4 full-finger knife. The handle itself, I think, is 4 inches. Maybe it's 4 1/4. I think it's just a 4-inch handle. I don't recall off the top of my head. Maybe it's a little over 4. Regardless, you can look the specs up. You can see it is a 4 full-finger grip. And I am 180 pounds, 5'10". I wear a medium size glove to a large. I can wear a large. Sometimes I need a large depending on the glove, but usually I will start trying a medium. So you get an idea of what hand size I have here. You can see in the hammer grip, this is just perfection. Full 4 fingers. Still have easy access to the glass breaker here. Just a great knife. Even in saber grip, still maintains its 4 full fingers. It's got a nice little jimping here you can set into there if you want to press forward onto the blade to do some detailed work. You got that too. Just holds in the hand very well. As a matter of fact, I thought I would bring out a couple of other common EDCs in the knife community here to give you guys an idea. Again, just from if this is how it looks in One All's hand, then you can kind of infer how it will fit and look in your hand. Here's the Benchmade 940. This is what a Benchmade 940 looks like and how it fits in my hand. So if you're looking at an SR2A and you have a 940, here's your relative perspective. Same with the Para 2. Very ubiquitous knife among the knife nuts here, and you can see how that fits my hand. So if that's how a paramilitary fits your hand, or thereabouts, you have an idea how the SR2A is going to fit your hand as well. You can see that, again, it is definitely a 4 full-finger knife, and that was important to me. That said, once I'd made up my mind to go ahead and get one, I started shopping for them, and another guy on Instagram, a guy named Extreme Addiction, and I'll put a link to his website down below in the description, he had the best prices that I'd found anywhere on the web. Easily $20 to $30 less on either the 1A or the 2A. So I went ahead and contacted him and placed an order for a red one. At that time, he said he didn't have red in stock, but he could order it. Again, his prices were good enough that I was willing to wait a few extra days for it. No big deal. He did. He ordered it. got it in immediately, shipped it back out to me, and when I got it, as much as I loved it, it was clearly a used knife. I don't blame Extreme Addiction. He, again, bought it from his supplier. He got it the same day he got it. He sent me an email, so your knife arrived, and it's already out the door. So he just bought it, or got it, repackaged it, and shipped it back out. And if you just opened it up and took a casual look at it, you wouldn't have necessarily noticed it. But, you know, any knife owner is going to get a knife and really pour over it when he first gets it. And it was clearly used. There were use marks and wear marks on the aluminum here, and the red had, some marks on it. There was a couple of marks up around the pivot that had shown that it had been adjusted a little bit. It was way over oiled in the pivot, like something like a user would, a new user would do to try to get the knife to smooth out when it was brand new instead of letting it break in. Worst of all, most of all, is that it had some distinctive use scratch marks on the blade. So they were very fine. But I took some pictures of this stuff and sent it to Extreme Addiction, and he was like, "Oh, geez, sorry," and he said send it back, and he ordered me another one and replaced it with this one, and this one is perfectly fine. So the build quality on these knives, though, very top notch. This is the build quality on this knife is equal to a knife of twice its cost. And when you think the fact that it's really just an aluminum version of their titanium version, which is twice the cost of this, it makes sense. Its monoblock design is so cool. It's all one piece. That you don't take the handles apart. You just take the pivot out and pull the blade out, and the handle stays as one unit. That's very neat. As you can see, the color, the anodizing on the aluminum is just beautiful. Satin pocket clip, satin bladed Sláinte steel, which is supposed to be like an upgraded, I guess, version of D2. I'm not really that familiar with Sláinte. I tell you this, very fingerprint prone. It's like VG10 and how fingerprint prone it is. So it's tough to keep. You see me wiping it a lot. It's tough to keep. You have to keep fingerprints off of it. But oh well. Not what you'd call thin blade stock, but it does come to a fairly decent tip. And it's got nice belly, and we'll make a nice slicer once I get this crappy LionSteel convex edge off of this thing, which is virtually unsharp. Yeah, I don't know what their problem is. They cannot, I've heard this before, they apparently cannot sharpen a blade. So I will put a good old-fashioned V-grind on the wicked edge on this, and it will be a beast, I'm sure. It's not stainless steel, but I live in the desert Southwest, and that's not going to be an issue for me at all. Other elements of this that just make it dead sexy, of course, like I said, are the aside from the red coloring, the red anodizing, are just the nice highlights in satin steel here and whatnot. The custom pivot here, the very cool and very functional stainless steel lock bar insert, which gives excellent lockup. Thing is just absolutely rock solid. I mean, I can't even muscle it. There's just nothing. There's zero movement. Nice deep carry clip. The roto block thing here, which I'm sure you've all seen before, locks the blade open. You cannot disengage the lock when this is on. Does this make it into a fixed blade? No. There's no way that, regardless of that's being held there, there's still a lot of parts that are really just pressed together. There's no way that's nearly as solid as one solid piece of steel. That said, first of all, I don't use it. It's kind of gimmicky, frankly. But regardless of that, I don't use it, nor do I need to use it for what you would use a knife of this design and size for. That's extreme overkill, number one, and number two, you're not gonna. This frame lock is a very solid knife, and this one is built very solidly, a very solid design of, and you're not gonna. This lock is not gonna fail on you. One of the beautiful things about a frame lock is that when you use it, you're constantly reinforcing the lock. I mean, as you hold it, you're pinching the lock closed yourself as you do cutting with it. So you're helping to constantly reinforce the lock. People take these things, they hold them like this, and they spine whack them, and maybe they get them to fail, or they beat on them and they get them to fail. But that's not how a frame lock would ever be used. You don't use a frame lock. You don't cut with a frame lock like this. You have to hold the thing, and when you hold it, you are pressing and force into the frame lock, into the blade tang relationship here, and you're not going to, again, on a knife this size. If you had an enormous frame lock, again, I just don't see how you're ever going to make one fail in real life use, unless you're just abusing it and doing crazy things like, batoning with it and whatnot, which, why would you baton with this knife? I mean, look at this sexy knife. This is not a knife you baton. This is a knife you take out to dinner. All right, you can tell I'm very enthralled with the beauty of this knife, and it is just an absolute beautiful knife, as is the SR1A, and I may end up getting an SR1A before it's all said and done eventually anyway, just because an awesome knife, really an excellent knife, and I'm sure that the 1A is just as awesome. Yeah, I would say if you're on the fence about getting one of these and you can't decide between the 1A and the 2A, if you want the 1A and then just go for it. I'm sure you'll be happy. But if you think maybe you like the smaller size but you're afraid it'll be too small, use this video as your point of reference and make your decision. If your hands are anywhere near my size, you'll probably find, as I do, that it's just absolutely perfectly sized for your hand. One other real quick thing that's really nice about this blade is that, or not just the blade, but the knife itself, is that it's got a good presence in the hand. It's got a nice width here. It's not too narrow this way. Sometimes smaller knives get a little bit too narrow this way, and they don't feel solid in the hand. They don't have a reassuring, presence in your hand. This one does. It's very wide. You can see it's nearly as wide. As a matter of fact, let me check. Just from the feel perspective, yeah, it feels just about as wide. I don't know what the specs are, but it's very, very comparable in feel to hand feeling that the Para 2 is. And on a smaller knife, that's a nice thing. And it's got a nice big, fat, broad blade this way as well. Yet it all folds up very nice and very slim to go into a pocket. It's a great carry knife. Great knife all around. Really highly recommend getting one of these. I can't believe, if you're tempted by it, that you wouldn't like it, because it certainly did not let me down. Anyway, that's 1 L's 2 cents, guys. Keep the change. Sláinte.